Hello everyone, I am Simple Batra back here today, and before today I move on with the lecture on Management Information System or Information Systems Management. It's very important for me to thank you all, specifically few of my students who keep on motivating me a lot through their lovely comments. Specifically Ayush, Kanika, Pallavi, Yashika, Ritik, Shruti Goyal, Neil Chaudhary, Deepak, Yukti and Kavita Bajaj from Vastu Vahini. All of you have really encouraged me a lot to do much better through your very valuable comments. Thank you each one of you by heart. Our today's topic is SDLC Model 1, which is the Waterfall Model. The links of all the earlier lectures are given in the description box, where you can understand the SDLC model in detail as well as why the SDLC models are actually required. As in the lecture 16, I told that we'll be taking up now each and every model in detail now. So today we'll start up with the same. Our first model is Waterfall Model. What are its advantages, disadvantages and when to use this particular model? As we had seen, there are several types of SDLC models or system development methodologies. Today, we'll be covering up this particular waterfall model. The waterfall model was given by Winston Royce in 1970 and it is a formal software development method. It was first time to formalize the framework for software development phases, placing emphasis on upfront requirements and design activities and on producing documentation during the early phases. Now, what is the beauty of this particular waterfall model? Why this waterfall model was introduced? It was the first time when there was a formal framework for the software development was introduced. Now, what is the exceptional part in this particular waterfall model? It emphasizes on the upfront requirements. Means all the requirements must be given in the beginning before developing any information system. It was clearly emphasized through this waterfall model. In case you have a pre-requirements ready with you for any project which is to be developed, then the waterfall model is chosen. Moreover, it emphasizes on the design activities, that what all designs are important for the development of a particular project, and on producing documentation during the early phases. It means in the very beginning of the development of the project, the documentation is also produced side by side. Now, this is the waterfall model. This particular waterfall model is a sequential model. It is a linear sequential model basically, where we are following different phases in a particular sequence. Our first phase is feasibility study, second phase is requirement specification, third phase is design, and your fourth phase is coding and unit testing. Then system integration and system testing is your fifth part here. And lastly, you have a maintenance which includes your implementation also here. Now, the first phase is the feasibility study. As we have seen, in the first phase, basically we talk about the project plan, which is the main document of this particular phase. In the SDLC, we had seen in the detail that how the different kinds of feasibility study is conducted during this phase. The same is applicable over here, and then after doing the feasibility study of different kinds like technical feasibility study, economic feasibility study, financial feasibility study, there are different kinds of feasibility studies. You can go through the same in the SDLC lecture given in the description box. So all the feasibility studies conducted here, and the project plan comes out as a major product here. Then second is requirements, analysis and specification. precisely here you have a SRS which is coming out. SRS is the software requirement specification which gives the detailed understanding of all the requirements of this particular project, and this becomes the baseline of your project. It is the agreement between the customer and the developer that what all requirements will be delivered at the end once the project will be over. Now in the third phase, the designs are made ready. Why? It gives the clear layout or the architecture of the system which is to be developed. Now what are all these designs? GUI. GUI is graphical user interface. It talks about all the designs of your screens, layouts, websites. Main screens are designed here in the design phase itself. Then you have DFDs, that is your data flow diagrams. Then you have ER diagrams, which is your entity relationship diagrams. So all this is basically done here. You have decision tables also, which are designed here only. Design phase in itself is very much important to be understood in detail while studying the system analysis and designing subject also. Again, before we go for the designing, it is very much important to complete the requirement analysis and specification phase. And before we go for the step 2, which is requirements analysis and specification phase, we have to complete the feasibility study first. Until the first phase is not totally complete and the project plan is not ready, is not delivered in the form of a written document, nobody can go with the start of requirements analysis and specification phase. Until or unless SRS is not ready and approved, you cannot go for the design phase. And once all the designs like GUI, DFDs, ER diagrams, decision tables, they all are ready, then only you can go for coding and unit testing. I hope you are able to understand that here each and every phase is once completed totally, then only you are going for the next phase. That is, locking of work of a particular phase is done and then only you are going for the next phase. Now coding and unit testing. What is this? It is the coding of both front end and back end. I had explained this in the SDLC in the very detail that how the coding of front end as well as back end is important. So you can go through the same in that lecture. I would recommend you to go through SDLC cycle in detail. You will get the entire notes. I have worked very hard for that particular lecture also. So when we do coding and unit testing, means we are doing front end coding and back end coding. Here the developers like PHP developers, C++, Java in different languages, coding is done by the developers to develop the entire system, and unit testing is done. That means each and every module is tested totally so that it should be totally error free and bug free when it is delivered to the customer. Now once the phase 4 is done, coding is complete, integration and system testing is done. Integration is what it is integrating all the different modules which were developed in the phase 4, and system testing means to test the entire system in totally, that if it is working in a smooth manner or not after being integrated. And lastly, maintenance is very important part. In this particular part, you have a complete maintenance of the project till its life cycle, till the particular project or information system is in use. Its maintenance is done, and there is a one thing which is called as help desk here, which is generated for the users who are actually using this particular system. User manual is also generated as a document, which is a very important part for the user to understand the working of the system and understand its each and every unit in detail. So through this particular waterfall model, you can analyze that how linearly in a sequence from up to down all the phases are actually implemented, and you can see here that every phase is completed first, then the next phase is taken up, and with every phase you have a different documents which are getting generated, and they are very important with the development of any project. So you can see that waterfall model is actually a sequential and linear model. This is very important to understand. How it works? It progresses through the orderly sequence of steps. It is the orderly sequence of step, one after the another is processed. It assumes that each subsequent phase will begin when activities of the current phase have been completed. Means if the activities of phase 1 has been completed, then only go for the phase 2. You cannot go for the phase 2 in case your phase 1 has not completed. Each phase has defined entry and exit criteria. Now what is this criteria? For the phase 1, the criteria is to generate the project plan. Once the project plan is generated, then only you can enter into the phase 2, that is requirements analysis phase. So for entering into the phase 2, the baseline or the entry criteria is phase 1 must be complete with project plan generated. And for the phase 2, what is the exit criteria? Exit criteria is SRS, which is a document of phase 2 that must be generated. That is software requirement specification. Once it is generated, the entire work of phase 2 is done. Then only you can proceed and exit from phase 2. Now transition from one phase to the next is accomplished by passing a formal review. What is this? This is a very important term, formal review. Do note this particular term. Now, if the phase 1 is over, for example, and you have a project plan generated. Now that project plan is not final if you have made it ready. That will go through the formal review. The entire team of that particular information system who is working upon it will sit and will review the particular project plan. Once everyone is okay with it, then only it will be selected, and then you can go for the phase 2. Now passing the review indicates an agreement among the project team members and the customer that the phase has ended and the next one can begin. Do keep this particular point in note that a formal review is very important to make sure that all the project team members are happy with the particular agreement and even the customer is okay with it, and then only you can go for the next phase. Now the another aspect of the waterfall model, that is what are the advantages of the waterfall model. In many of the question papers it is asked as the strengths of the waterfall model. The model is well known by non-software customers and end users, means those who are not working on software platforms. All those customers or the end users who are not aware of software industry a lot, for them the waterfall model is well-known model. It tackles complexity in an orderly way, working well for all the projects that are well understood but still complex. Such kind of projects which are very much well understood in terms of requirements from the very beginning, though they are complex, it is fine as it can tackle the complexity in an orderly way, because it is a sequential model. You are working in a particular order from top to bottom, following phase by phase and developing the information system. Now it is easy to use as development proceeds from one phase after another. I told earlier, once the phase 1 is done, then only go for phase 2. Once the phase 2 is complete, then go for phase 3. So it is very easy to use. Again, it provides structures to a technically weak and inexperienced staff. Such kind of staff which is not that good in technical aspects, it gives a good structure to them that you have to go phase by phase in a linear sequential way and follow the particular path to develop the entire system, and you are not supposed to skip any particular phase also. It works well when quality requirements dominate the costs and schedule requirements. When your focus is on the quality requirements, that we have to work on the quality requirements, quality work. Cost is not that much of important. Quality requirements is dominating cost. It defines quality control procedures. Each deliverable is reviewed as it is completed. At each and every phase, the quality control procedure is implemented, in which terms that in a particular phase, a particular document which is being given is reviewed once it is completed. Each and every document of every phase, which is the exit criteria of every phase. For the phase 1 project plan, for the phase 2 you have SRS, for the phase 3 you have designs, for example like DFDs, ER diagrams and all. Till the time they are not reviewed by the project team members, they will not proceed further for the next phase. It is easy to track the progress of a project using a Gantt chart. Weaknesses of waterfall model or disadvantages, the answer will be same. It has an inherently linear sequential nature. Any attempt to go back 2 or more phases to correct a particular problem or deficiency results in the major increases in cost and schedule. Means if you need to go back 2 or more phases, if you are working on a phase 4 currently and you need to go to phase 2 to modify the SRS, it is not possible here because it will increase the particular cost and schedule will be totally disturbed. Point 2. The model is not good for complex and object-oriented projects. Next, for example, if we say 35% project is done, it is a meaningless metric for the project manager. Any project manager cannot judge its exact progress if the particular chart shows 35% done. This actually is a false impression of status. So it is not easy to measure the progress within the stages. That is why it is said it is difficult to measure the progress within the stages in the waterfall model. Integration happens in a one big bang at the end. Once the system is integrated and system testing is done in the phase 5, then only the integration happens in a one big bang. It is done in a one big bang. Means there is nothing which you can see or preview before integration phase. With a single pass through the process, integration problems usually surface too late. Now, once the integration is done, in the 5th phase, when all the documents are being delivered from phase 1 to phase 4, it becomes too late to cater all the problems which are arising after the integration. Tight management and control is needed because there is no provision for revising the requirements. As the requirements are decided in the very earlier stage, in the phase 2 you have SRS which is developed and which becomes the contract for defining the functional and non-functional requirements of any particular project, and which cannot be modified later. So it becomes very important to keep a tight management and control over the entire project, because you cannot revise your requirements. Insufficient opportunity for a customer to preview the system until late in the life cycle. You can preview that actually how your system looks like, how the particular information system which you will be using is actually usable or not. So there is no opportunity for a customer to preview the system. It is possible only late in the life cycle of a waterfall model here. Only at the phase 6, which is implementation and maintenance phase here, jointly done, and then only you can preview the system as a customer and check its functionality. So when to use? The waterfall model performs well for the product cycle with the stable product definition and well understood technical methodologies. When we talk about stable product definition, whatever SRS, software requirement specification, is made ready, that should be perfect, catering all the needs of your particular product or the information system. The waterfall model is good in case you have a stable product definition in terms of its requirements, which can be functional or non-functional, and all the technical methodologies are well understood in the very beginning through the technical feasibility study. Second situation where to use the waterfall model: you have a accounting, payroll or compilers which are already in use in a particular company, and what you need to do, you need to develop some another new product or a project based on one of these. It becomes easier to use the existing designs, and you can efficiently use here the waterfall model because you have an experience of building a certain type of system here which you are actually reusing. Third, you have already a particular system in use, but you are looking forward just to improve that particular system and you want to release a new version of it. You have an existing product and that particular existing product will be redefined, will be again released as a new version with the add-on functionalities within the same. But it is possible only when you have a clearly well-defined changes and everything is done in a controlled manner. If you have enjoyed the lecture, please do like, share it with others also, and our next topic will be SDLC Model 2, that is my V-shaped model. Thank you for watching Simple Digital School. Bye-bye. Take care. Stay healthy. Stay happy.